Hello, Mustang fans, and welcome to another episode of the Mustang Owners Podcast. I'm your host, John Clore, along with my co host, Mike Ray. And whether you've known me from the Auto Week magazine, or maybe the Ford Special Vehicle Team, Ford Racing, or Ford Performance, or know Mike from his days at Team Mustang, maybe it was Roush, Celine, or the Mustang Owners Club of Southeast Michigan, we know that your story is the one we're interested in. And Mike, today the Mustang story has to be what happened at Ford World Headquarters when a Cars and Coffee turned into a Cars and Concepts.
I definitely think it was the most successful cars and coffee that Ford has ever put on at World Headquarters.
Well, they've had quite a few of them, usually out in front, Mike, but this time it was more than just, the owners coming, and don't forget there were plenty of employees as well.
Yeah.
But them coming to a Cars and Coffee where Ford paid for the coffee. And yes, Mike, I admit I didn't get the cheap black coffee. I got a foo-foo coffee.
Well, I think once everybody heard Ford was paying for it, the lines got a little bit longer, so I didn't get a chance to get one.
Somebody actually, not only did Ford do that, someone rolled up with a cart of either cookies or pastry.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if those were for sale, but all I do know is the cars came rolling in way earlier than Ford wanted them to.
Yeah.
And it filled up pretty fast. A lot of really crazy, I knew some were employee cars, some were club member cars. All the clubs from, say, within a 3-hour drive were notified. We tried to
Yep.
chase Club Connect, and the T-Bird guys were there. Mid Michigan was there. The Great Lakes Cobra Club. I mean, you name it, they came out. But they got their coffee. They kicked some tires. They looked at each other's cars, and there was right across from the little drive behind on the side road going into the back of World Headquarters was a little lot, Mike, where Ford brought out some GTDs, some race cars, and they thought that was fun to look at. And then there was the ramp that went inside and said, hey, this isn't a Cars and Coffee. Here's a chance to look at the Ford Heritage Collection. And by God, I'm so glad so many people took advantage of that.
Yeah, it was a really great attraction for everybody, and especially for those who came from out of town and out of state. And I think everyone had one out of the country. So
Yeah.
really, really great turnout for that.
Yeah, so it was the only problem, Mike, it was cold. And
Yeah.
I looked out the window there and saw, look at all these crazy people freezing to death. I think it was maybe in the low 50s, but with the wind, it was in the 40s, and you didn't want to stay outside that long. But I had to do a little bit of walk the lot, so you never know what's going to be out there.
Right.
Like, who would come to a Cars and Coffee with a little, you got to have a small pickup. And when you think of a small pickup, you're thinking Maverick? No, Mike.
Only in Dearborn. I love it.
Yeah, windows down. Do those things have heaters in them?
Rub your hands together.
Man, you needed them. But when these guys roll in with the Model A's, the Model T's, all the 20s and 30s cars, I got to give them credit because getting them started in the morning and then driving through,
Yeah.
that's Ford love.
Yep. Beautiful.
Of course, it wouldn't be a Ford show at headquarters without seeing some birds. You'll note that the retro bird had the top down.
Yeah, I see that.
What is wrong with you people? When it's 40 degrees, see, convertibles are not meant for, maybe it's 40 degrees. Maybe I'm the wrong one. But Mike, beyond my insanity for Mustang, I think I may have told you, or maybe some close friends, that I have a second most favorite car of Ford, and it is a 1960 Thunderbird with the 3 taillights, the three strakes on the back quarters. Those cars have some kind of design. I don't know what's they're cat-like or Batmobile-like or whatever. I just love those cars. And of course, the I think Water Wonderland was there, and maybe the Open Road Thunderbird Club was there. They wanted to come to the Cars and Coffee as well, and they were represented.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Now, we do know a lot of people that consider the Torino to be, one of their all-time favorite Fords, and there are many of them that are pretty. But to see this was, I believe, an employee's car, rolled that baby out just to see. Is that a Grand Torino? Get off of my lawn.
Yeah. That's a beautiful car.
Well, nobody told me, Mike, and you were supposed to call me if you did see Ice, Ice Baby. Was Vanilla Ice showed up?
Apparently, we missed him.
What? That's his car.
Yeah, there was a lot of Fox bodies out that day as well. So it was nice to see everybody coming out.
Well, the GT with the cheese grater taillights. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy brought it out. He popped the hood, so he had a lot to show. But yeah, at least he had the top up. I give the guy some credit. Now, Mike, don't you always talk about you really shouldn't have any kind of a Mustang gathering without somebody, call somebody with a first gen.
You know whose car that is? That's Jim Edge, the founder of Moxum.
So the guy that founded your club brought
The front license plate should say Moxum on it, if you can see it too.
He came out to this great Ford. It was, even though it was called the Cars and Coffee, everybody knew you were there to see the concept cars that came out of the Heritage fleet. So the fact that the founding father of Moxum came out with his first gen is very cool.
So celebrating 50 years this year, so yeah, very cool.
Darn. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that John Clor's 2006?
Yeah, it might be, huh?
Yeah, somebody came up to me, Mike, and said, hey, I didn't know they made a shaker in 06. Now, what do you say?
I love that. I love the shaker on that car.
I told him, listen, you are very smart, sir. They did not. He goes, well, how did you get that on there? I said, do you know Classic Design Concepts? He goes, what? I go, ever heard of CDC? He goes, no. I said, yeah, CDC made that.
Yeah.
And Mike, I think we heard from Art Hyde that we said, well, why didn't Ford put the shaker on the S197? They said they couldn't find any functional advantage for doing it. It would be a additional cost, and they couldn't make a business case for it. But George Hisman sure did.
Yep. And they're very, very popular, and they look incredible on those cars.
Well,
like they should have been there.
Let me validate they do shake.
Yes, they do.
No, wait a minute, Mike. Is this the car you drove?
That's the one we seen at the auto show. That's the Spirit GTD.
Spirit of America GTD. I know a lot of people who said they came to the Ford Cars and Coffee at World Headquarters to see a GTD in person.
Yep, that's the one that we seen that Jim Owens was standing by at the Detroit Auto Show earlier this year.
And I believe we had that one at Mustang Alley, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not the Spirit of America. But, Mike, that's over on the other side of our employee and owners cars and coffee lot where Ford,
that's lot 3 at World Headquarters.
So Ford brought out they brought out, a Mach-E and some GTDs, some race cars, some trucks, a Lightning pickup. They had a little, like a new vehicle car show. So that had to be the home run hitter. Everyone would want to see this car.
For sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have some other race cars out. Ford Performance, obviously in the race series, it's really important to know we have a whole series of race cars. So they wanted, I believe these were actually used in competition, Mike.
Yes, and they still are right now as we speak.
So they brought a couple out to show people they had wheel stands. And I did see some Ford, I don't know if they're Ford division or marketing people, but they were there to try to explain some of the cars there and answer questions, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Now, what the heck is the deal with this?
FP800S right there.
This is the car that every Mustanger wants, but Mike, they can't get one.
Can't get them yet. They've just been delayed due to parts, and hopefully we're going to start seeing them at the end of June and mid-July. Hopefully we're doing that. I have a long waiting list of people who want to own those cars, and it's going to be over 800 horsepower. Absolutely incredible car. He did a great job with the interior, great job with the wheels. Just great job all around on that. We're just eagerly awaiting them to go into production.
And that is a Ford
Performance
supercharger on that kind of Ford Performance vehicle. Hopefully they'll get their supply chain issues done because everybody looked at this car.
Correct.
Well, there's certain people who believe that, small Ford hot rods, back in the day when you'd stuff a V8 in a little coupe or a cabriolet and you'd be off to the races. But somebody decided to put an EcoBoost into a...
Is that what's in there?
That's an EcoBoost, Mike. Now, 300 horsepower in a car that light has got to flat out fly, but Ford does drag this thing around. Sometimes they'll take it to car shows to show what can be done with an EcoBoost crate
I
motor.
have not seen that car. That's crazy.
You'll see it sometimes on the trailer, and people are freaked out. Well, all I have to say is thank God it's not a small block Chevy. Of course, we had a good lineup. There were a lot of nice owner cars and employee cars, and the fact that it was, I don't think, Mike, did it rain?
No, I think it was raining. It rained overnight, so the ground was wet in the morning. They get stopped around 5 o'clock in the morning that day. So it was still a little bit wet on the ground, but no, it wasn't raining while we were there.
Well, that was still a very nice selection of Mustangs, and really from not just from Moxham, but from all the local Mustang clubs in and around the Metro Detroit area to come to Dearborn and World Headquarters.
Yep.
Did they want to see fellow cars? Yeah. But what they really wanted to see was the concepts.
Yep.
But what I wanted to see was who drove this 57 wagon all the way there. This thing got so much attention, Mike, that what do you call it? Patina?
Yeah, patina.
For those of you who love patina, this thing had tons of it and then some. But that's the kind of stuff the employees brought out. And one guy had a early Mercury that he got out on an estate sale, and they were just real proud to drive anything Ford to World Headquarters. Mike, what is it about these Mach 1s? Wait a minute. Did Ford make a shaker?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And that's what kind of got us, the rest of us, into that one absolute beautiful stunner to bring out on that morning. And, it must have been fun. Just even if you froze your rear end off, you put your heater on and go home in a car like that. That warms the soul.
Yep.
Now, there's a friend of ours.
That's Glenn Robitaille's ASC McLaren.
He is the community relations board member of Moxham, and what a very rare ASC McLaren. And boy, I know he polishes the heck out of it. That thing. Looks brand new.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's one of my favorite McLarens.
Super rare to see a Fox McLaren anywhere, let alone in this condition. I got to hand it to him hanging on to that. They're pretty smart.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't see many crazy looking Fords like a Cortina or even a wagon version, but Ford engineers appreciate all sorts of Fords, especially some of the European Fords. And it's not uncommon, back when Dave Glickman did the PDC, the Product Development Car Show at Ford, you'd see all kinds of European Fords at those shows. And sure enough, one showed up here at the Cars and Coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another one you don't see everywhere.
Maybe Carlisle.
Yeah. Yeah. You might see one, right?
Yeah. Get parts for that at AutoZone. Oh, wow. Talk about pretty cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing like the Gail Halderman design first-gen fastback cars, especially if it's got a V8. This thing was, how could you walk past that and not just stop?
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous car.
And speaking of gorgeous, Mike, have you sold any of these things?
Oh, yeah, a few of them.
What a beast.
Yeah.
When you bring, and it's not just the fact that the hood looks very scary, looks like some kind of a sea creature, and the big wing on the back, but this car's got the power to back it up. And by God, when you drive these things, Mike, there's just a feeling you can't get driving just about any other car on the planet.
Yeah, 760 horsepower is no joke.
It does something to you. And congrats for bringing this thing out on a cold morning. Just want to warn people, on cold mornings, the tires are not warmed up, so be careful of those on-ramps.
Yeah.
Oh, there's your car. Now, here's something for those of you who are on YouTube and are watching this, our photo essay, when you see a brand new 60th anniversary car and you see, oh my God, it's Brittany Blue. This car, Mike, has something that I don't think I've seen on any other of the anniversary cars, and that is
the red center caps that everybody's waiting on. Any of you who actually did get the car and didn't get your center caps, they are on their way. Just been a little bit of delay on the process.
So we did see an owner there, Mike. I'm not going to name his name, but I believe he's in Moxham. He saw that Ford had the unobtainium red center caps on his car, and of course he's got his 60th, and he said, "Hey, you distract the guy, I'll go get my screwdriver."
Yeah, I've delivered 4 of them, and they're all asking me every day when the caps are coming.
Very cool. Yeah, but it was great to see that there. And I know that the Mustang brand manager, Joe Bellino, was there, and people
Yep.
were asking him about those red
Yeah.
center caps.
Yeah. And
On
Joe's in on all those meetings. Yep.
well, it wouldn't be a concept.
Inside.
It wouldn't be a collection of old Fords. How did we save this? Well, folks, we didn't save it. This is a reproduction, but Ford did have it for years and years as a display vehicle, and design hung on to it, and then archives had it, and what are you going to do with it? Well, it's so accurate, and it's just a great car to see the heritage of the company. And somehow, Mike, they squirreled it away, and when you walked into the little heritage collection area inside World Headquarters Garage, that's one of the first cars you saw.
Yep. Beautiful car.
Now, a lot of people would saying, design studios kept some vehicles, engineering kept some vehicles, heritage did, performance did. But Mike, I had a lot of people ask me about, hey, what is the Atlas? Why didn't they build this? And
Yeah, everybody did. That was the question I think I got probably asked the most there as well there too is why didn't they ever build the Atlas?
well, as a concept, you can see a lot of the styling elements did find their way into F-150, say from 2018 through 2024.
Yep.
But yeah, what that thing just turned so many heads there when that thing came out, and I was surprised so many people were interested in that big old Ford styling exercise.
Yeah.
Here's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was really cool.
You think they just made trailers? I wonder what the coefficient of drag was on this little Airstream Ford concept, and why and where did Ford keep this car? I remember it being at an auto show years ago, back when I was at Auto Week. I never saw it again.
I never seen that car ever until that day. So that
Where
was my first time ever seeing it. Yeah.
who was hiding this, Mike?
I don't know, but it's really cool.
It's very cool. One of my favorites, a lot of how hard we work to get young people into the fray when the ST and then the Focus RS came out. The Focus RS was, oh, they only have them in Europe. Why don't we ever get something that cool? And then, Mike, we did get something that cool. And it's only fitting that Ford kept one of these in their fleet.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of following behind those cars as well.
Oh, absolutely. Still today. And I wish I had this one, although the keys were not in it.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people ask me about this and they go, did you guys have a concept on the Ford Flex?
Yeah.
And this was called the Fairlane.
Yes.
And
Which turned into the Ford Flex. Yes.
when you look at it, yeah, a lot of the styling cues of this Fairlane, all the door configuration was different. There's a lot of things different about it, obviously, but design kept this. I think this was in the Legends collection. I don't know, Mike, may have been under J. Mays, but the Legends collection had a lot of these really the concept cars, yes, but there's a lot of adaptation that went into real Fords that followed this car after it saw the auto shows.
I'm just so glad they kept it though, because they all tell a story, and that was the really cool point of it.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Now you had the three Cobra R number ones.
Yep.
When was that?
We had them last year at the show, and we did it at the SVT reunion as well. It was the first time they were assembled together, but I think they were all there last year as well.
Yeah, you got them. Somebody got them out of wherever they were at SVT, and you brought Cobra R number one of all three series, and they brought them out. And to Ford saving these cars, very important, because these, I mean, let's face it, if you like SVT Mustang Cobras, the Cobra R is the one to have.
That was thanks to the team of Nick Terzis, Matt Korzik, and Mark Wilson to get those Cobra R's all assembled together and to make their appearances.
And keep them away from the Crusher.
Yeah.
Now here's one of my favorites. We did dollar car, Mike, when you were head of the SVTOA. We dollar card the Cobra powered Ranger, which was a 5.0 5-speed manual Ranger pickup that was not approved for production. And then when that one didn't get the attention, Dave Dempster, John Coletti, and the team put a blown Lightning supercharged V8 in a Ranger pickup, if that wasn't enough. And they called the Lightning Bolt Ranger. This thing, I'm so glad SVT didn't dollar this off or crush it. This is really it just shows you the hot rodding mindset, if you will, of the special vehicle team back in its heyday. And to see this truck out there, man, but I love to drive this up Woodward.
Yeah, that is absolutely part of major history right there.
Now, a lot of people don't know, but your old buddy Jason Demchek and a lot of people at Ford Racing were able to try to come up with another concept, and SVT wasn't done screwing around with Mustangs. So when they stuffed a V10 into an SN95, they thought it would never work, and it was just craziness. But we actually had some media drive this car, and they thought what a great idea it was. You know, the V10 was coming a becoming thing in trucks, and if we could tune it right, get the transmission to spin right, what a great car this would be. And the prototype lived, and then we thought it was crushed, and somebody threw it away. We thought somebody would dollar card it, and then they found it, and how they brought it back. Where did they have this? Who had been hiding this for years? I don't know, but this car actually runs and drives.
John, wasn't one of our other former guests, Jesse Kershaw, involved with that car too back in the day?
Yep, absolutely. You know, he was when he worked at Ford Racing as well. He campaigned this. He wanted Ford Racing to try to pick up the mantra if SVT wasn't. Of course, they weren't.
Right.
But yeah, this car, you know, there could have been a light of day. We just didn't have a champion.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but having a V10 Mustang sure will give you some sort of bragging rights. You know,
Yes.
by God, who in the heck thought of that? That's how crazy they were. Here's one of your favorites. You know, there's something about you know, this car I understand was built off an S197, Mike.
Really?
Yeah, and it actually had a back seat, and they were doing four-door studies, and the design center said, you know, we can kind of do like a retro Fordish look, and again, using some of the old design themes from Fords of yesteryear and putting them on modern chassis. Really cool exercises. I thought this car was long gone. It only made a couple of years appearances on the show circuit, and nobody ever seen it again. But to go look at the workmanship in this concept car, to see that it was saved, so cool to see it live and in person.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, Mike, didn't you buy one of these? Only this was decades before.
That's when I first seen that car. I said, man, I sure hope they bring the Bronco back. And if they ever do, I'll buy one. All because of that vehicle right there.
Yeah, but I mean, so many years ago,
Yeah.
when Bronco wasn't even a blip on the radar screen, to come out with, I mean, the design was boxy, yeah, but it's kind of cool, and it does speak to the Bronco we eventually came up with today. But to have those designers back then, right, you know, right after our centennial,
Yeah.
to think about this great name and to craft this car looked like it was made out of billet.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And it's very, very attractive. And like I said, it caught a lot of eyes. And I remember being at the auto show, like I said, getting all the attention.
Well, Bronco concept is going to do that, especially today, but very cool that they had it there. Now, this was probably one of my, maybe my second favorite, to see these little micro cars. You know, don't forget, we had Fiestas, you know, we had Festivas, but to see a little tiny micro car like this, which would have meant this would have been way cooler than a Mini,
Yeah.
right? And to have a Ford, a little micro car like this, I thought this car was over in Europe, saved at the UK museum that Ford had, but to have it here, to see that it was in North America and we were looking at it, kind of cool.
Yeah. I'd never seen that car before in person either.
Now, here's absolutely everyone's favorite of the Interceptor. Four doors, kind of looks like a cross between, I don't know, a Taurus, Flex. You know, it's just the muscle of this car. This is all. Look at the domed hood. You know, to put a big V8 in it back then. This was badass.
Yeah. I look at it like a Lincoln Taurus.
Yeah. Now, apparently, this was another exercise of how to do a four door on a stretched S197.
Wow.
So the V8 was a Mustang V8, and how they stretched it and put a second set of doors on it, which would have given them some engineering ability if they ever wanted to do a four-door Mustang. But this concept, man, did this draw a crowd. People were staring at this thing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right, here's my favorite, Mike. My absolute favorite of the entire show, all the concepts. This is the Reflex. This is what I believe Cal Sperlich was talking about for Mustang 3. If Ford were to make a new Mustang, to make it smaller, lighter, a seat four, look absolutely spectacular, almost like a GT40 or a Ferrari, and to sell it for $25,000.
Yeah.
And if you put a 300 horsepower EcoBoost in this, which would fit,
Yeah.
um, there's no reason why you couldn't sell 400,000 of these a year and make things like the BRZ and MR2s and all the crazy imports that think they're cool sports cars, put them in the weeds. This, to me, would have been the great way for Mustang to transition from S550 back to a smaller, fun, affordable, small little fast car that could be sold in the mid 20s. And I just, when I see this car, I just think of Hal Sperlick's idea of going back to Mustang roots. I think it was beautiful. I
Yeah.
just loved it. I know, hop in. It looks like a cop car. I know,
Yeah.
but again, they did use the word interceptor on our police vehicles now. The Tauruses. No, they're
Yeah.
Explorers.
Taurus and Explorer. I was actually on the Interceptor team too when I was still on Team Mustang.
Yeah, and it's cool that Ford can go back and wave the flag that throughout history, that name meant something, not just, and maybe not so much law enforcement at the time, because early on during the 60s, we didn't use it that way. But the fact that we can take a great name, take a big sedan and just show Ford that's Ford sedans let's put us on the map, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, speaking of little Lincolns, do you like waterfall grills?
Yeah.
That design signature kind of followed Lincoln, although I think this thing had suicide doors,
Yes.
which is really a kind of a Lincoln thing too, right?
Yep.
With the Continental. And
Yep.
So this was a concept that a lot of people saw some of the features. They just never thought they would see it in their SUV lineup just several years after this car was a concept car. But that's why you have them. And thank goodness the Ford design team saved it.
Yeah.
Well, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to save a Ford GT, especially the latest Ford performance versions. Early cars, early build cars, one-off cars. There were several there, Mike. I think there were like 5 or 6.
Yeah, 3 or 4 for sure inside.
Yeah, and I think they all had their own story for a reason. And I don't think you can save enough Ford GTs, either the first gen or this gen.
Right.
Because having these cars, if there's one thing that put us on the map with the rest of the world, it's the Ford GT.
Correct.
Now, I believe this was one of the original 3. There was the red one,
Yes.
the white one, and the blue one.
That's the original prototype.
Yeah, and what happened was after the red, white, and blues went up on stage during Centennial, we got the green light to go build Ford GTs, and
Yeah.
SVT and Coletti went off. We did that with Steve Saleen. But then later on, we needed to show the Gulf livery, and they took one of those prototypes. I believe this was the blue one, and they painted it in this livery. But this underneath that was the original, one of the 3 original prototypes.
Correct.
And Mike, I don't know about you, but just coming inside, seeing Ford employees in there, some of the designers and engineers were in there. The people, Matt Korzik of Ford Performance and Kristen Mueller. Kristen helped
Yep.
on the Ford Performance side.
Nick Terzis was there.
Terzis was there. I mean, there's so many Ford
Ted
people.
Ryan, Dombrowski, Art Hyde, Rob Gilardi, Joe Bellino, George Hughesman. Everybody was in attendance.
Yeah, so you go to a Ford Cars and Coffee, and when the Ted Ryan's group said, "Oh, we're going to show you some of the cars we've saved in the Heritage Collection," at the same time, that's the reason why Mustang people that we know flew all over the place. And I met a couple, Mike, who were at the Mustang 2 reunion back when Moxham had it a couple years ago,
Yeah.
and they became Moxham members. Well, they found out about the Cars and Coffee with the concept cars, and they flew in the night before from Minneapolis,
Isn't that awesome?
came to the show just to see the concept cars and spend the day. And after they kicked some tires with Mustang, saw all the cars that got back and flew back home. That's the kind of love.
Yeah. And we got to share that information with all the people that came out of town with Mike Levine from Ford as well. And, we had people from, like you just said there, from Minneapolis, from Carolina, Belgium, and then the other guy from New Hampshire.
And from the museum, the Mustang Owners Museum, they had a group come up.
Yeah.
In fact, Mike, the story about that event is on fordperformance.com/articles. You can check it out there. But what a great day when Ford opens up the doors to show its concepts, and Mustang and Thunderbird and all kinds of Ford owners and employees come to Ford World headquarters to have free coffee, kick some tires, and pray for spring.
Yep.
Mike, it was so great to see you there, see so many of our friends there, and I hope you folks enjoyed this chance to see what went on at the Cars and Coffee at Ford World headquarters this spring. What a great time.
Yep.
Well, that should do it for another edition of the Mustang Owners Podcast. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And also check out our merch on Ford. It's really the only Ford Cool website there is left, svtstore.com. That's where all the old stuff is. And Mike, we have a whole array of Mustang Owners Podcast apparel. If we see you at a show with a Mustang Owners Podcast shirt or piece of apparel, we'll give you a special prize, and you are a special prize to us for watching. So thanks for joining us today. We'll just have to catch you next time down the road.